Imagine going to bed tonight and waking up 5 years from now. Your health has declined, your career has stalled, and your relationships have deteriorated. Not because of some dramatic life event, but because of 7 subtle habits you repeated day after day, completely unaware of their cumulative impacts. This isn't hypothetical, it's happening right now to millions of people who can't understand why they feel increasingly exhausted, unfulfilled, and stuck. In this video, I'm going to identify each of these invisible saboteurs and give you the practical alternatives that successful people use instead. What if I told you that your greatest enemy isn't external competition or bad luck, but rather the subtle patterns you repeat every single day? These patterns, these habits aren't dramatic enough to trigger immediate alarm bells. They're the quiet saboteurs that operate in the background of your life, gradually eroding your potential with each passing day. Think about that moment when you hit the snooze button instead of rising for your planned morning workout, or when you scroll through social media rather than tackling that challenging project. These moments seem insignificant in isolation, mere blips in your day, but they're actually the invisible architects of your future self. Let's examine the first of these destructive habits, prioritizing comfort over growth. When you consistently choose the path of least resistance, opting for that extra hour of sleep or pushing difficult tasks to tomorrow, you're not just making isolated decisions. You're creating a pattern that fundamentally shapes who you become. Each time you postpone a challenge in favor of immediate comfort, you're training your brain to avoid rather than confront obstacles. The result isn't just decreased productivity, it's a gradual surrender to mediocrity that seeps into every aspect of your professional identity. The second habit is equally insidious. Declining enthusiasm for challenges. Remember when a complex problem used to energize you? When did that shift? For most professionals, it happens so gradually they barely notice. Each time you avoid a difficult task, your threshold for what feels too hard lowers slightly. What once sparked curiosity now triggers avoidance. This isn't just about missing opportunity. It's about a fundamental shift in how you perceive your own capabilities. Then there's your morning routine, or lack thereof. What happens in those first waking hours creates a momentum that carries throughout your day. When you start by immediately reacting to notifications or rushing through a chaotic morning, you're establishing a reactive rather than proactive mindset. Those who consistently delay getting out of bed don't just lose those morning hours. They often experience weaker performance throughout the day, leading to skipped workouts, abandoned projects, and a pervasive sense of being behind. What makes these habits particularly dangerous is how they rewire your neural pathways. Each time you repeat a behavior, whether productive or destructive, you strengthen specific neural connections. Your brain becomes increasingly efficient at executing these familiar patterns, making them progressively harder to break. But this isn't just bad habit formation, it's neurological reinforcement of your limitations. The cost extends far beyond missed deadlines or stalled projects. These habits extract a toll from your very identity. As you repeatedly settle for less than your best, your self-perception gradually adjusts downward. You begin to see yourself as someone who just isn't good at mornings, or who needs more downtime than others. Your potential ceiling lowers without you even realizing it's happening. The truth is that your current state of underperformance or stagnation isn't random. It's the predictable result of these destructive patterns playing out over months and years. Recognizing these patterns for what they are, systematic saboteurs rather than occasional lapses, is the crucial first step toward breaking free from them. The gap between who you are and who you could be isn't filled with motivation techniques or productivity hacks. It's bridged by systematically replacing destructive habits with their counterparts. While most people try to eliminate bad habits through force, neuroscience reveals a fundamentally different approach creates lasting change. Your brain isn't designed to simply stop doing something. It's wired to replace one pattern with another. This is why the psychology of habit replacement has become a cornerstone of lasting personal transformation. Rather than fighting against deeply ingrained neural pathways, Successful transformation involves creating new competing pathways that gradually become the default. Your brain's natural plasticity becomes your greatest ally when you work with its mechanisms rather than against them. Consider the profound impact of strategic nutrition on your cognitive performance. Most professionals struggle with energy crashes and brain fog without recognizing the connection to their dietary choices. Research shows that consuming omega-3 fatty acids from sources like salmon, flax seeds, and walnuts dramatically improves memory, cognitive processing, and overall brain health by replacing processed foods and sugar with balanced meals that stabilize blood sugar levels. You create the biochemical foundation for sustained focus and productivity. This isn't about willpower. It's about understanding that your brain's performance is directly tied to the fuel you provide it. Obsessive perfectionism, another destructive habit, can be transformed into balanced goal pursuit. Instead of abandoning ship when perfection isn't possible, high performers learn to calibrate their standards to the specific context, applying appropriate levels of precision without becoming paralyzed by impossible expectations. The relationships you maintain constitute another critical replacement opportunity. Energy vampires and toxic connections that consistently leave you drained can be systematically replaced with boundaries that preserve your mental resources. This isn't about isolation, but strategic connection. Cultivating relationships that energize rather than deplete your capacity for growth. Perhaps most counterintuitive is the replacement of comfort seeking with strategic discomfort. By intentionally engaging in activities that push your boundaries, whether through challenging projects, public speaking, or even physical practices like cold exposure, you expand your capacity to handle stress and develop remarkable adaptability. This practice of deliberate discomfort builds resilience that transfers across all domains of life, making formerly intimidating challenges feel manageable. These replacements create compound effects that accumulate exponentially over time. A 1% improvement daily translates to a 37x improvement over a year. The initial weeks may show minimal visible progress, but as these new neural pathways strengthen, transformation accelerates beyond what seems logically possible based on individual inputs. Consider how differently your future unfolds when strategic nutrition powers consistent mental clarity, when balanced goal setting replaces perfectionist paralysis, when relationships energize rather than drain you, and when deliberate discomfort expands your capacity daily. 5 years from now, these aren't just better habits, they represent a fundamentally different operating system. Your brain has a hidden defense mechanism designed to sabotage change, even when you consciously want it. This phenomenon, called identity homeostasis, explains why you keep reverting to old patterns despite your best intentions. Your brain literally fights to maintain your current self-image, even when that self-image is limiting your potential. This invisible guardian of your current identity is the primary reason most transformation attempts collapse within weeks of starting them. Bridging the gap between knowledge and implementation requires more than motivation. It demands a systematic approach that works with your brain's architecture rather than against it. Let me introduce you to the three-phase framework that bypasses this natural resistance. Awareness, disruption, and replacement. The awareness phase isn't about casual observation. It's about ruthless documentation. For 1 full week, track every instance of each destructive habit without attempting to change anything. Document the cue that triggers the habit, the routine behavior itself, and the reward your brain receives. This data gathering phase reveals patterns you've never noticed. Someone attempting to replace poor nutritional choices might discover they reach for processed foods not from hunger, but from specific emotional triggers like boredom or stress. Once you've mapped your habit loops, enter the disruption phase. This is where most people fail because they try to eliminate a habit without understanding that habits cannot be erased, only replaced. The key is to keep the same cue and reward but insert a new routine. If the cue for procrastination is facing a difficult task and the reward is temporary relief, Insert a new routine, like breaking the task into 5-minute segments, still allowing yourself the reward of brief relief. The environment around you shapes your behavior more powerfully than willpower ever could. To overcome perfectionism, create physical reminders of your new good enough standards. Perhaps a visible checklist of simplified criteria for completing projects. For disrupting poor morning routines, place your alarm across the room and your workout clothes beside your bed. Engineering your environment to make the right behavior easier than the wrong one. The final phase, replacement, is where the magic happens. This isn't just about substituting behaviors, but about consciously adopting a new identity. Someone breaking free from stagnation doesn't just exercise more, they begin to say, I'm someone who craves new challenges. This identity shift transforms the new behavior from something you do to something you are, sidestepping the homeostasis mechanism entirely. The timeline for this transformation isn't the 21 days promised by pop psychology. Research suggests an average of 66 days before a new behavior becomes automatic, but this varies widely depending on complexity. Expect a valley of disappointment around week 3, when your efforts haven't yet produced visible results. This is precisely when most people abandon ship, just before the compound effect begins to accelerate. Track your progress using concrete metrics, not feelings. Apps, journals, or simple spreadsheets create accountability and make progress visible. Share your transformation journey with someone who will hold you to your commitments, increasing your likelihood of success by 65% according to accountability research. We've reached the end of our journey together. But for you, this is where the real work begins. The research is clear. Transformation isn't just about knowledge, it's about persistence and support. As one Reddit user powerfully noted, overcoming destructive patterns demands time and effort, but the rewards are significant. What separates those who transform from those who remain stagnant is not information, it's their willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. Your transformation starts when you decide that staying the same hurts more than changing. Today, choose just one of these 7 habits that resonates most deeply. This isn't another self-improvement project. It's the first step toward becoming the person you're meant to be.